In the world of wrestling, it's not just the dramatic matches or the shiny titles that captivate fans. What makes some wrestlers truly cool goes far beyond that. It's their real strength, extraordinary life stories, and an undeniable presence that commands respect. From men with monster-like power, to warriors who push through pain to achieve glory, to immortal icons who shook entire arenas, they've created moments that will never be forgotten. Let's take a look at the wrestlers who redefined what it means to be tough, where strength and spirit became legendary. Bad News Brown, the man who feared no one. In a wrestling world filled with giants and superstars eager to prove themselves, very few could strike pure fear simply through presence like Bad News Brown. Born Alan Coge, he was far more than just another wrestler. He was an internationally recognized fighter. Before stepping into the squared circle, Brown made history by winning the bronze medal in judo at the 1976 Olympics. That achievement showed he wasn't just playing a role. He was a real warrior with legitimate combat skills. Inside the business, Brown earned a reputation as someone who would fight anyone, no matter how big the name. One story that cemented his dangerous aura was his infamous run-in with Andre the Giant. During a tour in Japan, Andre allegedly made racially offensive remarks toward Brown. Without hesitation, Brown demanded the bus pull over so they could settle things with their fists. Shockingly, the unbeatable Giant didn't accept the challenge. Not only did Andre back down, but he reportedly apologized to Brown afterward. That moment alone made him a living legend in the eyes of his peers, proof that even the Giant wanted no part of him. Brown's in-ring style reflected his real personality, intense, direct, and no-nonsense. He didn't rely on flashy tricks or showmanship. What fans remembered was his cold, relentless strikes, the image of a man who simply never backed down. His WWE career wasn't long, but the moments tied to his name remain unforgettable. To this day, Bad News Brown represents the idea that true intimidation doesn't always come from size, but from an unbreakable will and a fighter's spirit ready to take on anyone. Harley Race, the Iron Champion. When talking about wrestlers who commanded universal respect, Harley Race stands at the top of the list. He wasn't just a legend in NWA history. He was the embodiment of grit, toughness, and the indomitable will of a true warrior. In an era when the NWA World Heavyweight Championship symbolized the highest authority in wrestling, the belt required more than skill in the ring. The champion had to be tough enough to protect it outside the ring as well. Harley Race was exactly that man, a fighter no one dared to double-cross once the bell rang. His reputation was so intimidating that even Vince McMahon tried to shake his ground. Before the first Starrcade event under Jim Crockett Promotions, which stood as a direct rival to WWE, McMahon invited Race to dinner and even offered him $500,000 to back out. True to form, Race flat-out refused. According to accounts, McMahon became so enraged he tried to attack him, only for Race to nearly snap his neck in retaliation. But what truly defined Harley Race's unbreakable spirit was his life outside the ring. At just 18 years old, he survived a devastating car accident that killed his wife. Race himself was so severely injured that doctors declared him dead at the scene and later claimed he would never walk again. Yet, through sheer determination, he endured 2 years of grueling recovery and came back stronger, resuming his career with an unshakable fire. Harley Race went on to win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship 8 times, a record that cemented him as one of the cornerstones of wrestling's golden era. But more than the titles, fans remember him as the image of resilience, a man who faced every challenge head-on, in and out of the ring. Bam Bigelow, the tattooed giant with a brave heart. In wrestling, Bam Bigelow stood out with an unmistakable look, a bald head covered in fiery tattoos and a massive frame that seemed built to intimidate. But behind that fierce exterior was a story that earned universal respect, proving he wasn't just a powerhouse in the ring, but also a hero in real life. One fateful day, when a building went up in flames, Bam didn't hesitate. Instead of waiting for rescue crews, he rushed straight into the inferno to save trapped lives. With sheer strength and courage, he carried 3 children to safety, putting their lives ahead of his own. That act didn't just deepen fans' admiration, it defined him as a man willing to do the extraordinary when it mattered most. The cost of that heroism was devastating. Bam suffered severe burns covering 40% of his body. Many thought he wouldn't survive, and even if he did, his wrestling career would be finished. But just as he always did after brutal falls in the ring, he fought back with resilience. He endured 2 grueling months in the hospital, pushing through unimaginable pain, and returned stronger than ever. What fans remember most about Bam Bam isn't just his unbelievable aerial moves for a 400-pound man, or his legendary battles inside the ring. It's the story of him risking everything to save others. To many, that was the truest definition of being cool, laying your own life on the line to protect someone else. Perry Saturn, a hero beyond the ring. In wrestling, Perry Saturn was known for his intense style and icy, steel-eyed stare. But what made him one of the coolest figures in wrestling history wasn't just his matches. It was a real-life act of heroism that turned him into a true warrior. In 2004, while driving with his girlfriend, Saturn heard cries for help coming from a dark roadside. Without a second thought, he stopped the car and ran toward the sound. There, he witnessed 2 men attempting to assault a woman. Ignoring his own safety, Saturn dove into the fight to rescue her. The struggle was violent. In the chaos, Saturn felt like he was being punched repeatedly, but in reality, he had been shot multiple times. Even with life-threatening wounds, he kept fighting, fought off the attackers, and saved the victim. Few men could have done such a thing, and even fewer would have had the courage to keep battling while their own life hung by a thread. The aftermath was brutal. The injuries left him in constant pain, which led him down a dark spiral of addiction. 4 years, he was consumed by that darkness. Yet, just as he had once stood against gunfire, Saturn proved his resilience again, slowly conquering his demons and reclaiming his life. His act of heroism in 2004 didn't just save an innocent woman, it became an eternal testament to Perry Saturn's courage. He didn't need flashy titles to prove greatness. His real-life bravery made his name shine brighter than any championship belt ever could. Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, with a steel spirit. In the 1980s, as wrestling exploded into a cultural phenomenon, Paul Orndorff carved his place in history as Mr. Wonderful, a man who was not only handsome and charismatic but also ruthless and fierce inside the ring. Known for his hard-hitting style, his fiery rivalry with Hulk Hogan in 1986 created blockbuster matches that drew massive crowds and kept fans on the edge of their seats. But behind the spotlight was hidden pain few ever saw. At the height of his career, Orndorff suffered a severe injury to his right arm. He should have undergone immediate surgery, but instead chose to keep wrestling, knowing opportunities at the top don't come twice. Years of performing through agony left permanent damage. His right arm gradually shrank, a lasting reminder of the sacrifices he made for his craft and his fans. Orndorff's toughness wasn't just seen in the ring but also in legendary backstage stories. One of the most famous was his real-life fight with Vader, a massive powerhouse feared by nearly everyone. In a heated confrontation, Orndorff didn't back down. Wearing nothing but flip-flops, he brawled with Vader, and shockingly, dropped him. The story spread across locker rooms everywhere, turning Orndorff into a living legend. Jokes even circulated that if he'd been wearing slippers, Vader would have died of embarrassment. Through highs and lows, Paul Orndorff is remembered as a symbol of grit, courage, and defiance. He left behind not only unforgettable matches but also a legacy of perseverance, a true warrior who kept fighting even when his body was breaking down. Haku, the warrior who struck fear across wrestling. In wrestling history, many names stand out for their power and aggression, but when it comes to the man even legends respected and feared, that name is Haku. He didn't need flashiness or many words. His presence alone was enough to make people uneasy. Haku became infamous for countless chilling stories passed around the locker room. It was said he once ripped out an opponent's teeth with his bare hands, a tale terrifying enough on its own. On another occasion, in a fit of rage, he punched through not one but 2 solid wooden doors, leaving witnesses stunned. It's no coincidence that even Andre the Giant, the unbeatable Colossus, gave Haku a unique level of respect. His danger wasn't only about brute strength, but also his fiery temper and refusal to back down. One of the most famous stories involves a heckler who mocked wrestling as fake. Before the words even finished leaving his mouth, Haku attacked, and the man ended up with his nose bitten clean off. Brutal as it was, in a world where respect was sacred, this act only added to Haku's reputation as someone you never crossed. What made him extraordinary was the mix of size, raw power, and the fearless spirit of a true Samoan warrior. He didn't care who stood across from him. No matter how big or famous, anyone who provoked Haku had to deal with the consequences. That's why among wrestlers, He's often called the most dangerous man in wrestling history. The legend of Haku lives not only through matches in the ring, but through the stories wrestlers still whisper about him. Stories that only strengthen the belief that he was truly someone no one dared to fight. Bob Orton Jr., the reckless cowboy who didn't care. When people talk about the golden era of the 1980s, Bob Orton Jr. is remembered for his exceptional technical skills inside the ring. With smart, precise grappling and reliable in-ring work, Orton built a reputation as both a talented wrestler and a trusted partner in big matches. But what made his name unforgettable wasn't just his ability. It was the wild stories outside the ring, where recklessness and toughness blended into one. One of the most famous tales, retold by Bret Hart himself, still gets laughs and headshakes to this day. After a night of heavy drinking, Orton found himself not only completely drunk, but also completely naked, locked outside his hotel room in the hallway. Picture it, one of the biggest stars of the 80s, standing proud in the buff, completely unbothered by anyone's stares. Things escalated when police were called. For most people, having a tranquilizer dart shot at you would be more than enough to bring you down. But not Orton. After being hit, instead of collapsing as expected, he just stood there unfazed and muttered, "That's it." A perfect display of his fearless, nonchalant attitude. That story captured who Orton really was. Part reckless cowboy, part unshakable tough guy who feared nothing. That same boldness carried into the ring, giving him the edge of someone not only skilled but dangerously unpredictable. Today, fans might know the Orton name more through his son Randy, a modern-day superstar, but Bob Orton Jr. deserves recognition as his own kind of legend, a man who could shock both wrestling audiences and real-life police officers alike. William Regal, the Iron Gentleman with an unshakable foundation. William Regal was never the bodybuilder type, nor did he portray a flashy superhero. His toughness came from wisdom, grit, and a unique Iron Gentleman aura that set him apart. Regal entered wrestling at 15, surviving the rough-and-tumble carnival circuit in England, where crowds didn't just boo but often climbed into the ring to test the wrestlers themselves. From that brutal environment, he learned not only technique but also endurance, cunning, and resilience. When he came to the US, Regal quickly gained recognition, not only for his technical mastery, but also for his sharp in-ring strategy. He wasn't loud or flamboyant, but once the bell rang, every movement showed cold calculation. That reputation reached a peak in WCW, where he faced Bill Goldberg, the undefeated destroyer of the company. The match became legendary because Regal did the unthinkable. He refused to let Goldberg steamroll him. Instead, Regal used every bit of his skill and ring savvy to drag Goldberg into a real contest. Some fans believed Regal deliberately made Goldberg look foolish, while others thought Goldberg simply couldn't keep up. Either way, one thing was clear: against Regal, Goldberg had no chance. Regal's cool factor wasn't just about defying the undefeated star of WCW, it was about showing he wouldn't bow to anyone's hype. In a world where many played it safe to protect their spot, Regal proved his worth with raw ability, a sharp mind, and ironclad discipline. Kurt Angle, the unbreakable Olympic machine. In the world of wrestling, where strength and endurance are pushed to their absolute limits, Kurt Angle has always stood out as a one-of-a-kind icon. What makes Angle a legend isn't just his decorated career in WWE, but the unbelievable story that began at the 1996 Olympics. At that time, he stepped onto the mat with a broken neck, something that would have ended the journey of nearly any other athlete. Yet, through sheer willpower, Angle not only competed but went on to win the gold medal, shocking the entire world. That moment didn't just prove his extraordinary ability, it cemented him as a true warrior of steel. The same nothing is impossible spirit carried into his WWE career, where he quickly established himself with world-class amateur wrestling skills and razor-sharp ring IQ. Fans were awed by his speed, agility, and ability to adapt strategies on the fly, while opponents had to stay constantly alert. One slip was all Angle needed to lock in a devastating hold. One of the most legendary stories that showcases Angle's power was his surprise encounter with Brock Lesnar. At the time, Lesnar was seen as an unstoppable machine, with a massive physique and an elite amateur wrestling background. Many assumed he would dominate Angle with ease. But the reality was very different. In that impromptu showdown, Angle's experience and flawless technique took over, and he even managed to humble Lesnar with his skill. That moment became undeniable proof. Kurt Angle wasn't just a great wrestler, He was the perfect blend of physical strength, elite skill, and rare mental toughness. With his achievements both in sports and professional wrestling, Angle rightfully stands among the coolest and toughest wrestlers of all time. Chris Masters, the steel physique who saved a life. Chris Masters, better known as the Masterpiece, was one of the most physically impressive wrestlers ever to step into WWE. With a chiseled bodybuilder-like frame and his signature Masterlock submission, he was often portrayed as the arrogant, merciless villain of the ring. Every time he appeared, Masters sparked buzz with his smug confidence, fitting the perfect image of a true bad guy. But behind that flashy facade and heel persona was a very different man, a son, and ultimately, a real-life hero. The story fans will never forget about Chris Masters has nothing to do with a WWE match, but everything to do with a tragedy that struck his family. One night, an arsonist set fire to his mother's home. In a moment of sheer crisis, when panic would overwhelm most, Masters kept his composure and acted with unimaginable strength. He ripped a tree out of the ground in the yard, used it to smash through a window, and charged into the raging flames to rescue his mother and bring her to safety. That image wasn't of a wrestler performing scripted drama, it was of a son risking his life to protect his parent. That act transformed Chris Masters from a TV villain into a real-life hero, earning him universal respect. The man once booed and jeered by crowds suddenly became a symbol of courage and family devotion. Chris Masters' name might not always come up in lists of WWE's greatest legends, but that story set him apart in a different way. It wasn't a victory won by submission or a championship title. It was a victory over fear and danger to save his mother's life. And that, more than anything, proved just how truly tough and admirable a wrestler can be, both inside the ring and out in the real world. Brock Lesnar, the human beast. If you had to name one wrestler whose very presence makes people shiver, Brock Lesnar would be at the top of the list. From the moment he stepped into WWE, Lesnar shocked the world with his build that looked like a fighting machine. Massive muscles, unbelievable speed for his size, and an intensity that felt almost feral. He wasn't just another wrestler, he was the beast incarnate, radiating menace with every step he took toward the ring. What made Lesnar stand apart is that his power wasn't just for show, it was real. With an accomplished amateur wrestling background, including multiple collegiate titles, Lesnar entered WWE already a proven athlete. And he didn't stop at professional wrestling. He took his talents to the UFC, where the competition is brutal and nothing is staged. In just a short time, he became UFC heavyweight champion, proving beyond doubt that his strength and dominance were authentic. Back in WWE, Lesnar continued to strike fear into the roster. From The Undertaker and John Cena to Roman Reigns, anyone who faced the Beast endured a violent beating. His defining moment came when he became the first man to break The Undertaker's legendary undefeated WrestleMania streak, a result that shocked the entire wrestling world. Brock Lesnar doesn't need fancy speeches. Every appearance speaks for itself through his raw power, relentless aggression, and sheer physical dominance. Whether inside a wrestling ring or the UFC octagon, Lesnar has shown he's the embodiment of primal force, a true beast come to life. The Undertaker, the immortal soul of wrestling. In wrestling history, no one has ever carried the same aura of mystery and chilling presence as The Undertaker. With his dark entrance, wide-brimmed hat, and piercing eyes, The Undertaker wasn't just a character. He was the embodiment of immortality, a living legend etched into the memories of millions of fans. What made him truly cool wasn't only his haunting persona, but also his unmatched longevity and resilience across more than 3 decades in the ring. He combined the grit of a battle-hardened warrior with destructive power that toppled giants. His thunderous chokeslams crushed opponents, while the Tombstone Piledriver became one of wrestling's most feared finishers. Nothing defines his legacy more than his iconic WrestleMania streak. For 21 straight years, no one could defeat The Undertaker on WWE's grandest stage. Each time he emerged from the fog during his eerie entrance, the arena was engulfed in an atmosphere that was equal parts terrifying and electrifying. He didn't need to say a word, just his slow, deliberate walk was enough to make thousands rise to their feet. Beyond the dominance and mystique, The Undertaker's true greatness lay in his loyalty and dedication. While countless stars reinvented themselves, left the company, or chased other opportunities, The Undertaker remained loyal to WWE. He preserved his character's aura for decades, never breaking the spell of his dark mystique. The Undertaker wasn't simply a wrestler. He was the symbol of endurance, the spirit of immortality, and the embodiment of awe-inspiring fear that no one else could replicate. With his legacy cemented forever, The Undertaker will always be remembered as the immortal soul of professional wrestling. These are the names that turned wrestling into a journey of strength, grit, and resilience. If you're just as amazed by how badass they are, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next incredible story.